The Oklahoma Sooners got great news the other day in that Todd Bates, the defensive line coach, is getting extended. And also, before that, you saw Oklahoma throw out an offer to a defensive lineman currently committed to Auburn. And Oklahoma fans are asking themselves, what are the chances Oklahoma can flip this defensive lineman from Auburn? We'll talk about that and more. And before we do it, guys, I need y'all to do me one thing. I need you to hit the like button. I need you to hit the subscribe button. Jump down in the comments below and give me your thoughts. Do you think the Oklahoma Sooners can flip Malik Autry? And if you don't want to answer that question, then tell me what you think about the extension of Todd Bates, because he came in and landed Oklahoma a 5-star defensive lineman, or defensive tackle, shall I say, which is something Oklahoma hasn't done in a while. And it was something a lot of Oklahoma fans thought was overdue. It's kind of time for. Let's talk about it. But we got to start with the news that I believe his last name is pronounced Zients. Matt Zients over to 247 tweeted out, Oklahoma is in the process of finalizing a new contract for co-defensive coordinator and defensive tackle, Coach Todd Bates. That includes a significant raise after he received interest for multiple jobs this cycle, one in the SEC, which he said sources tell 247. He said that he is expected to make about $900,000 per year, which would make him one of the top of the nation's highest paid defensive line coaches. And I thought this was interesting, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, you guys can find it in the chat. I know you guys are really good at this. I think it was George Stoya was talking about the highest paid defensive line coaches. I think it was him. I think I saw it on Twitter. I just couldn't find it. Highest defensive line coaches paid in the SEC, and Todd Bates is going to be right up there with the best, right? Number 3. Now, obviously, you don't have old Nick Williams and Robinson there anymore. They're out at Syracuse. But Todd Bates, after going and landing David Stone, getting Jaden Jackson. In the previous cycle, you'd gotten Derek LeBlanc, but Derek LeBlanc ends up going back home because, hey, you know, it just what fit him better. No bad blood there. I know some OU fans, hey, you wanted him to stay, but unfortunately, some kids just, they get homesick. They got to go home. And so, I think this was a big cycle for Todd Bates, the last cycle. And he came out. I mean, he didn't get Dominic McKinley and Williams Nwaneri like a lot of Oklahoma fans wanted. But you know what? It takes time. That process to land multiple 5 stars on the defensive line, that takes time. So you saw them throw out an offer to Malik Autry. Malik Autry is a defensive lineman I believe it's pronounced Opelika, Alabama, at 6'5.5", 325 pounds. This is a guy that could play the interior spot, and I think it's more of a need now, knowing that Jacob Lacey is going to be retiring from football, which prayers out to Jacob Lacey, and we hope that he is going to get healthy, that everything gets well with him. And you kind of saw Oklahoma knew that this was coming down the pipeline. So in 2025, maybe they take an extra defensive lineman now, because, well, that room's starting to get a little thin. You're definitely going to take someone out of the portal. Now, I definitely think if they go into the spring portal and they find somebody that they like that has multiple years of eligibility, maybe they don't take an extra guy throughout the recruiting trail that has, 4 years, right? But Malik Autry is a guy that, out of the state of Alabama, obviously Todd Bates has roots there, currently committed to Auburn, has, I think, the only official visit on his list scheduled to USC on June 7th. He's been to Florida 4 times. He's been to Georgia twice. He's been to Alabama twice. Obviously, it looks like since the turnover with Nick Saban leaving, he's been to Ole Miss a couple times, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee. So if you're Oklahoma, one, you've already got a tall task in front of you with trying to flip this prospect from Auburn. 2, you're going to have to go up against some of the most elite competition on the recruiting trail, which is going to be a theme, right? We started to see this last cycle, maybe the cycle before, but you're going to start going up against some of the most elite of elite schools year in and year out. So these coaches, they're going to start, like Todd Bates, getting paid. And they're going to have to start producing a little bit higher than what we have in the past. You flip a guy like Malik Autry, and then we look at some of the other defensive linemen that Oklahoma could possibly go out there and get that we know they're in the running for, like a Cole Breiler out of Princeton, New Jersey. Obviously, you have Kamori Moore committed to Oklahoma, and I talked to him the other day, and I know there was some concern that maybe he would flip, maybe following Jamar Mosey. That's not happening. Dude's locked in right now. Do not expect Kamori Moore to flip. So no need for Oklahoma fans to worry about there. You've got one of your defensive linemen firmly cemented in there with Todd Bates. And we know Todd Bates and the staff, they develop really good relationships. So a lot of the times when these guys get committed, you're not seeing them go anywhere. So Cole Breiler, you've got Kamori Moore currently committed. You have Trenton Wilson coming on campus on March 9th. I think after that March 9th visit, we're going to find out whether or not Oklahoma's in the driver's seat or not, right? I think this is going to be one of those things where Trenton Wilson shows up. He has a really good experience. You're probably going to see some crystal balls flowing for Oklahoma. Otherwise, probably going to one of those other schools like Penn State or somewhere else like that. You look at Ethan Utley out of Nashville, Tennessee. He's been included in Oklahoma, has been included in his top schools list. You got Juju Marks out of Lenexa, Kansas at 6'7", 260. So there are plenty of options in this class that are not necessarily like 5 stars. Like you're not going to get the Elijah Griffin, who is the #1 defensive lineman, #3 overall player in this class. Like you're not going to get him. At least it doesn't seem like Oklahoma's in the running there. But you have plenty of other great prospects. So if I look at it and I say Oklahoma gets Malik Autry, it adds depth to that interior defensive line. And honestly, with his size and when you watch his film, the ability to get off that line of scrimmage quickly, the burst to get around those offensive linemen, the strength to kind of create himself a pathway to get back there. Malik Autry would be a guy that would be a perfect replacement of Jacob Lacey after the season because obviously he's not going to be here this year. And then you've got David Stone and Jaden Jackson there. So you'd have another elite top tier defensive lineman in the wings waiting for you. The question is, can you convince a kid from the state of Alabama to leave his state, come to the University of Oklahoma, who is going to be a rival of Auburn and Alabama? Like, is that possible? Like, can we even really think that? I think the chances are there. I'd keep them at like a 15-20% chance, and here's why. Because Todd Bates is from the area, he obviously has some roots. Todd Bates obviously has some connections. I just don't know if Oklahoma has improved enough, right? I think they need to have a couple more years where they show improvement, put a couple guys on the defensive line in the NFL to really start recruiting that defensive line at a nationally level. What I mean by that is to be able to go into the Georgias and the Floridas. And David Stone really doesn't count because David Stone's from Oklahoma. And, you know, he just went to IMG Academy, which we're not going to get into that whole story, but he's from Oklahoma. I'm not really counting David Stone like that. And obviously you got Jaden Jackson, but I'm looking at the guys from the Georgia and the Alabamas and the Floridas and all those other places, right? When Oklahoma is able to start putting more interior defensive linemen in the NFL, maybe in the first, second, and third rounds, I think that's when you're going to see more of these flips become more of a reality for Oklahoma. Not saying that this one's out for Oklahoma just yet. Malik Autry gets on campus with anything that Todd Bates and Brent Venables, anybody they can get in front of, anything's possible. But I just would consider it very unlikely at this current moment. If Malik Autry was to flip from Auburn, you would look at maybe like a place that he's currently got an official visit scheduled for, USC, maybe in Alabama or an Ole Miss, because we know Ole Miss, they like to go out there and try to grab those defensive linemen as well. But I want to hear from y'all, and I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Do you think Oklahoma can flip Malik Autry? And additionally, what do you guys think of Todd Bates getting an extension? Do you think it was the right move for Brent Venables? Do you think it was the right move for the University of Oklahoma? Is there more that you want to see out of Todd Bates over the next coming years? Drop it in the comments below. And YouTube wants you guys to watch one of these 2 videos, so make sure you guys tune into one of those as well.